So welcome to chapter 4 of the Node Academy. This is a special chapter because it's the one that we're finally going to run LND, meaning we're also going to complete our objective, meaning we have a fully running node, and I'm going to teach you from here on. You can just keep it running. We're going to need a little bit of information from that node so that I can open the channels to you, and then you'll get your sats back finally, and hopefully, as soon as I think I got like the first 5 people, then I'll just open a channel to the first 5 and then to the next 5 and so on, to save a little bit in on-chain fees. So this is my, I hope you can see this. This is my terminal, like a little bit bigger. So this is my node, and I'm going to check my node and see if it's synced. And as you can see, it's not synced. This is all the way to October 22, 2022. So this is still going to take a little bit while. So I have, just as if it was a cooking show, I've prepared something else in advance. And that is my little pie that usually serves as just my Bitcoin node. So I use that to kind of just check locally whether I have received an on-chain payment or not. And in this case, you're running Bitcoin CLI, get info. I should be able to see that this node is synced. The Pi is a little bit slower. I personally think it is like just at the limit of what you can meaningfully run, where you can meaningfully run a full Bitcoin node and a Lightning node, at the very, very low end of the feasibility spectrum. And that kind of makes it, that's kind of also a, how do we call this, a little bit of a benchmark, whether people can run a Lightning node and a Bitcoin node on a Pi. For the Bitcoin core project, people have always given that as an example of, oh, if you can't run Bitcoin on a Pi anymore, then the project has failed. So here are the latest blocks and the headers. So these are the 2 numbers that I think matters the most. Headers is how many blocks does our Bitcoin node hear about, right? Not necessarily know that it has or has verified, but just how many does it know exists likely, because it will sync these headers first, and these headers kind of give it an idea of how many blocks, for example, do our peers know about. And if these 2 number matches, then there's a pretty high chance that we are fully synced to the network. Some other cool things you can look at is how many people are connecting to your node. So I currently have 30 connections in to my node. So this is other people connecting to me, and 12 outwards. I think 12 outwards is the standard, or maybe 8 outwards is the standard, and I've configured a few manually. So this is great. This tells us that Bitcoin is running. We can also use this command to check whether we have properly installed LND, or in this case LitD. It seems to be working. I have not yet run it. I have a simple configuration file that I hope is working. So one day of starting LitD is just to type LitD, and this will run as here, and so that looks pretty good. We can look a little bit at what it's outpointing. So LitD is running on mainnet. Great. Then here's the version, which I also believe is the latest version. So we'll do a separate, I'll talk about that towards the end of today, but we'll do a separate session on how to update stuff. Here, this is how I can theoretically kind of access the LitD user interface. We're also going to do a separate session on that. This is the LND version that's inside of it, 16.3. We're running on Bitcoin mainnet, and we're listening on port 10,009. These are some of the stats to start with. So LND is running inside of LitD. It's still locked. This is the version. Here's the web interface. Now, these are pretty important. It says this might take a few minutes. Of course, since our node is brand new, it takes like it takes a literal millisecond. But in the future, you're going to notice that this is going to take a while. And depending on your database, this might take like a minute. This might take maybe at maximum like 10 minutes. If it takes a bit longer, then maybe we have some other problem, or we're running a very large node on a very little machine. Here in this case, we're creating the local graph since it does not yet exist. What else is interesting? This last one. So LitD is not really doing anything here right now because it's waiting for the wallet to be unlocked. So this test, so now LitD is running kind of in this terminal, and you can tell that as soon as I want to exit this terminal, then LitD is just going to shut down. And that's not something we want. We want LitD to run in the background, kind of quietly, so that even as we do something else, we're always able to access it. So this is kind of our ideal state. Since we run it on a computer, we want the computer to be running all the time. We want, and so this is shutting down very slowly too. Now we want the computer to be running all the time, and we want our node to be running all the time, so that it's always available if we want to, for example, connect to it from our mobile phone, or if somebody makes a payment to it while we're asleep, or if we want to run some kind of services on top of it, or even if we want to run it as a routing node that we're able to. So this is connecting to a long time. I can just kill it. I just murdered LitD with Control Z instead of Control C. Now, in this case, I'm going to open a separate terminal, which you can see here. They don't quite fit on the screen both, but we only need really one. And in the separate terminal, so in one, I'm going to run a prefix no hub, which kind of means take the command here in the end and push it into the background. And then we're going to use this end symbol to kind of say, like, don't write anything to the command line. We want to be able to not see anything here. So as we run this here, it tells us the process number 9115. This could be useful if we had to now kill the process, because we can no longer run Control C or Control Z. And here we're going to have to press enter one more time. And yeah, ideally we can also, sometimes we can look here into TOP and see that, see whether it's running, but this only really works if it's consuming a lot of resources. You can see Bitcoin here at the very top consuming most of the resources at the moment, and Tor consuming some. Can't really see LitD in here, but if LitD is really just his Electrum, is also a great thing to run. But if not consuming any resources, we're not going to find it in here. So instead, we're going to just look at the logs, and the logs should be here. And indeed, this seems to do fine. So this is where we shut it down previously. Let's just try LNCLI get info, which does not work. Is this really running here? Either it's running very slowly or it's not running. Yeah, probably died from something. All right, so this is an error that comes from me not properly shutting down the service earlier, which is a bit annoying. Sometimes in this case, I would just restart it. In this case, restarting takes a long time. I can try to see if I can make it listen to this is terrible. If I can make it listen to any on any other port instead. So this is what happens if you don't like properly shut down your programs, because you get impatient. That now the program is still kind of a zombie process, still occupying port 8443, and that means that as I try to start LitD, it isn't able to occupy LitD anymore at this port, because not two processes cannot. These are all the options. These are all the configuration options. So this might also be useful to know if you type litd and then kind of like -- help, then you get a list of all the options, which are a lot. And if you scroll, and they're ordered by which subsystem. So here are the, and this is too many to just display them. Let's make it smaller. Apologize if you can't see it. So here at the very top, here, HTTPS listen. This is the one that I need to change. I can make this bigger again. HTTPS listen equals 8444. I'm just gonna make it listen on another, and I'm gonna try to run this command again. Okay, and then I'm going to look at the output. And again, missing port and address. Okay, so what I missed is that in this 127.0.0.1, this misses the IP address. It needs an IP address and a port. Let's try this again and see where we are now in our log, listening for HTTPS and 844. So that seems to have worked. It also isn't able to gain the exclusive lock. That's another thing that comes from not properly closing the service earlier. So that's also an easy one to fix. Because all I need to do is just remove everything here. All right, next attempt of starting litd. This is what happens if you don't test this properly, or if you're running on a very, very old machine. All right, so this here seems to have worked. The last line is here waiting for the wallet encryption password. So now we're going to go into the second window. We're going to keep the other one open just so that we see what's happening in here. We can run lncli get info. Probably in this case it's still unlocked, but we're going to create a wallet. And we're going to create a wallet password in this case, which you can't see, so you kind of have to trust me what I enter. But I just type in Node Academy. Not necessarily do I need to tell you, but just type in a password. I confirm it. I'm going to be asked if we want to create a new seed. Do you have an existing cipher seed, mnemonic, or extended master root key you want to use? No, because we want to create a new node, and for that node we want to create a new seed. And the general seeds you have from your regular Bitcoin wallet wouldn't work here anyway. This uses a slightly different format. But generally, I highly recommend you, every time you set up a new wallet or set up a new node, make a new seed. Never reuse these seeds. That can cause all sorts of unexpected behavior. In this case, we're pressing N to create a new seed. we are not, I'm personally not encrypting these seeds because I do not want to figure out the hassle of then having to figure out where I back up my seeds, plus where I back up my encryption phrase. It's difficult enough to do one of them. But if you want to do that, then that provides you with additional security. And this is my LND cipher seed. So now that I've shared this with the world, I will never be able to put any sats into this node, but that's fine because this is just a demo. So don't share the seed with anyone. Write it down on a piece of paper. I'm a big fan of paper. I am also a big fan of using pencils instead of pens, because pencils will last you for decades and pens will eventually fade, and they will also be affected by water a lot more. So even just something like humidity is going to affect your seed if you write it down with a pen, and a pencil is going to survive a lot more. There is also lots of cool ideas to put it on a kind of engrave it on steel, lots and lots of things. I'm just recommended use a piece of paper and a pencil. Now that we have this, we can look back at what LND did. So starting from here, it connected at some point. This was us making the call. Bitcoin, creating a connection, connected to LND, waiting for it to unlock. And now here, this is the point where we unlocked LND. This is the point where we started listening for Bitcoin transactions. This is where we connected to Bitcoin D and using the fee estimator. So LND doesn't have its own way of estimating fees. It just uses Bitcoin Core. And here it was unlocked forever. The wallet was open. What else? Of course, no channels being closed. What else is interesting here? Here it makes all the macaroons for us, which we'll get into in some advanced thing if we want to mess with that. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do with permissions. Now, waiting for chain backend to finish. That was an interesting one here. Waiting for chain backend to finish. This is going to be very fast because we just created a new wallet, and this wallet, the seed phrase also includes information about when the wallet was created. So it knows the wallet was created at height 793.316, and that means we barely have to sync it to the blockchain because there couldn't have been any transactions in that wallet before this date. We here starting the rescan. It does go a few blocks in the past, 16, it actually goes 300 blocks into the past, even though there couldn't be any transactions in there. And so now what it does is it connects to the network, to the LND network. It is creating backup files. And starting from somewhere around here, it is going to connect to the graph. This is pool, this is loop, starting all these sub-services, starting all these features up, and now it's going to sync to the graph. And we can kind of follow this here, so we can do lncli get info, and the most important things that we want to see here is synced to the chain true and synced to graph false. So we always want both to be at true when we're running this. But for the moment, as long as we're synced to the chain, we can already use LND. We need to wait for it to be synced to the graph before we can properly make payments. So all we're going to do here is get network info. And here pretty much has nothing. It's actually not synced, so barely synced to the graph at all. So as this kind of continues, we expect this number to go further and further up until eventually we have here the number of nodes will eventually, I think, peak at the moment we're at about 18,000 nodes. So I think as soon as I think here also in here I kind of show where the in a sample output from a different node. Number of nodes, 16,000. The number of channels, 41,000. So eventually, once this is synced, this is going to take a while on this machine. What else do we want to get? So in this case here, I have not on the Pi connected LND to Tor, and I've also not told it about a public IP address. So in this case, the URI is empty, meaning nobody is able to connect to my node from the outside world. All I have is a pub key that, doesn't make sense to message and sharing, since it is since anyone is able to create the same pub key from the seed phrase that I shared with the world. But for your nodes, I expect there's something to be in here. And if not, then we need to check the configuration for either Tor and or the public IP address. Here's a bunch of feature our node supports that we can set to true or false. There's also at the very bottom a list of things we can do. Here, this one is good. LNCLI, new address, pay to taproot, P2TR, and that generates a taproot address for us. So we would be able to send sats to this address, right? We can kind of go to mempool.space/address. This is going to tell us it's a valid address. We can send Bitcoin to this address, and that would then allow our node. So here, LNCLI wallet balance tells us how many sats we have in our node in our on-chain wallet. Of course, it's going to be empty, but then here you would be able to see, okay, there's an unconfirmed balance in here. And a total balance and a confirmed balance, and ideally all the sats that you sent here will show up. If you then later want to open channels, you can do this command. So it shows you all the options. I've created also a sample command here. So you need a node key, how to connect to it, and a local amount, meaning how large do you want the channel to be, and the sat per vbyte, how many fees are you willing to pay to open this channel. At the moment, we can look here at mempool.space, I think about 25 sats would get you confirmed relatively quickly. So that's about maybe $1.50 for a channel opening. So that's somewhat acceptable. Once you open a channel, you can do LNCNI pending channels. This is going to show you all the channels that are currently pending open, pending closing, pending forced closing, and in this weird waiting close state. Now, maybe the most useful of all commands is always the help command. So this shows us the manual, and this manual lists all the commands that we have. List aliases, so we don't have any aliases here, but we could create some. Oh, anything that's really fun to show off. We can always turn our node off with the LNCLI stop command. So in this case, I'm not going to kill it. But you see that it still runs a little bit, and once it says here LTND shutdown complete, that's when we're kind of safe to do something else or restart it. So if we now were to restart it, we do it again like this. No hop.d. We're going to again follow the logs, and you can see the log stops again at waiting for wallet encryption key. So now every time we start LND, we're going to have to unlock it. So as soon as we see the logs being stopped here, we can go into a separate terminal and type LNCLI unlock. And now our password is still Node Academy. And as soon as we type that in, then here the wallet should unlock. And now LND will start, and everything will kind of go into its place. And also it will check that it's still synced to the chain, and it will hopefully continue the sync. What was the command? Get network info. So you've seen it has now synced to 718 nodes. So Node knows about 718 nodes in the network and 1,000 channels. So that's still going to take a while, but that's kind of how we are able to follow slowly so while I was speaking, it was going for another 13 nodes and another here only about 20 channels. So this is how you can then follow along the sync process, or you can just leave it at B. Or you can, at this point, you don't need to be synced to now open a channel or receive coins. You only need to be synced to the network to be able to make payments. So once you want to make your first Lightning payment, then you need you kind of need LNCLI get info to return synced to chain true and synced to graph true. So now what I need from you is I need you to follow the steps in our guide, and then I need you to run LND. And once you have created your wallet, back it up, don't tell anyone, use a good encryption password, and once it's running, run this LNCLI get info command and look here for the URIs, and there should be a URI in here. So it's typically going to be your public key at, usually if it's Tor, then a Tor onion colon 9735, or if you're running on ClearNet, then it's going to be your pub key at your IP address colon 9735. And if you're running both, then both should show up here, and you just have to share one of them with me. So the second thing I needed to do is I needed to go onto this guide and look at this form. So ideally here you type in your email address, the same one that you have provided at sign up, so that I can match your records. And here I need the node URI, so that's your pub key at IP address, something like this. And then we're going to create a Lightning invoice. I've also, for the Lightning invoice, you can really just copy paste this command. You can also make your own memo, that's fine. Just don't change the amount, because you're only getting the 210,000 sats back. And for expiration date, give me a little bit of time, make it at least a week. I'm going to batch these opens together. This is going to return something like this. Here is the hash that kind of identifies the payment. And here is the actual invoice. So I need you to copy, paste this, and paste it in here. My machine runs in the cloud. I totally enjoyed the course. I think it was just right. I'm not suggesting that you say this, but you fill out this form, and once I have this information from maybe 5 of you, then I'll open some channels. And yeah, that is it for today. We have now 1 hour to sprint to Mount Pleasant and join the Bitcoin meetup number 10, the roundtable. So hopefully see you all there, or see you in the chat, or see you on the Lightning Network.